Lieutenant Ryan Walker had always prided himself on remaining calm under pressure. 15 years in the International Space Service had taught him that panic was a luxury he couldn't afford. But as the shuttle's systems failed one by one, even his iron discipline was being tested. Engine 3 offline, Engine 2 critical, the AI's voice announced with maddening serenity. Red warning lights bathed the cockpit in an apocalyptic glow. Through the viewport, Ryan could see the curve of an uncharted planet growing larger by the second. Beautiful, he thought absently. Swirls of purple and teal atmosphere surrounding landmasses in shades he had no names for. Mayday! Mayday! This is Lieutenant Ryan Walker of ESS Pathfinder. Shuttle SP-117 experiencing catastrophic systems failure. Position unknown, impact imminent on uncharted planet surface. He repeated the distress call, knowing it was likely futile. The communications array had been the first system to go. The shuttle's hull groaned as it hit the upper atmosphere. Temperatures in the cockpit began to rise. Navigation offline, life support failing, the AI continued. Tell me something I don't know, Ryan muttered, wrestling with the manual controls. A backup system so rarely used that cadets joked about them being decorative. He'd been on a routine resource survey mission. The Pathfinder was mapping this newly discovered system for potential mining operations when his sensors had detected unusual energy readings from the third planet. Protocol dictated investigation, but not alone. Captain Hernandez had insisted on sending Ryan, her most experienced officer. If anyone can handle the unexpected, it's you, Walker, she'd said. The irony wasn't lost on him as the shuttle broke through cloud cover, revealing a landscape of purple-hued forests and sprawling silver plains below. No time to search for a suitable landing zone. He was coming down hard. Ryan tightened his restraints and assumed crash position. Come on. He managed to level the descent slightly before impact. The shuttle hit the ground at an angle, skidding across the silver plain, tearing a gouge into the alien soil. Metal screamed against stone. The viewport cracked, but miraculously held as the vessel finally came to rest at the edge of the forest. The sudden silence was disorienting. Ryan hung from his restraints, the taste of blood in his mouth. Through the spider-webbed viewport, he could see strange vegetation and 2 moons visible in the lavender sky. Damage assessment, he croaked. No response. The AI was offline. Ryan performed a quick self-assessment. Cuts, bruises, possibly a cracked rib, but nothing life-threatening. With effort, he released his restraints and dropped awkwardly to what was now the floor of the canted shuttle. The emergency survival kit was intact: water purifier, nutrition packs, medical supplies, and his service pistol. The shuttle's communications were dead, and the emergency beacon showed no sign of functioning. Standard protocol, he muttered to himself, voice steady despite everything. Secure location, establish shelter, signal for rescue. He popped a painkiller from the medkit and set about salvaging what he could from the wreckage. Dawn broke with a kaleidoscope of colors Ryan had never seen in any sunrise on Earth or the colonies. The twin moons still hung in the sky, pale ghosts against the brightening alien day. His first night on the planet had passed without incident. He'd sealed the shuttle as best he could and slept fitfully, service pistol at his side. Now, he needed to assess his situation more thoroughly. The atmosphere was breathable. His suit's sensors had confirmed that much before failing completely. Temperature was mild, gravity slightly less than Earth standard. He'd survived worse conditions during training exercises on Mars. Ryan exited through the shattered rear hatch and surveyed his surroundings. The silver plain stretched to the horizon in one direction, its surface not soil, but something resembling fine metallic sand. In the other direction, the forest began, trees with spiral-shaped trunks and foliage in deep purple hues. He set up the emergency beacon on the highest point of the shuttle's hull, though he held little hope it would function. The crash had damaged it severely. "Help isn't coming anytime soon," he said aloud, finding comfort in the sound of a human voice, even his own. Time to explore. Ryan had been trained for first contact scenarios, but those protocols assumed he'd be arriving in a functioning shuttle with a team of xenolinguists and diplomatic specialists, not crash landing alone. As he approached the forest edge, he noticed that what he had taken for moss or lichen on the trees was actually moving, tiny organisms that shifted and flowed across the spiral trunks. Fascinating. He recorded observations on his datapad, one of the few pieces of equipment still functioning. Water was his first priority. His supplies would last a week if rationed carefully, but finding a renewable source was essential. He followed a subtle depression in the terrain that might indicate a watercourse. The forest was alive with sounds, clicks, whistles, and something that resembled distant wind chimes. Occasionally, flying creatures would dart overhead, their bodies long and sinuous like airborne eels. After an hour's hike, Ryan found what he was looking for, a stream of clear water flowing over stones that glittered like opals. His analyzer indicated it was safe for human consumption after purification. As he filled his containers, movement caught his eye, a flash of blue among the purple foliage. He froze, hand moving instinctively to his sidearm. "Hello?" he called, immediately questioning the wisdom of announcing his presence. Silence answered him, but he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The days that followed fell into a routine. Ryan would check and reset the emergency beacon each morning, then forage for anything that might supplement his dwindling rations. His analyzer could test alien organics for compatibility with human digestion, and he'd identified several edible fruits and root vegetables. Each night, he'd return to the shuttle, secure the hatch, and record the day's observations. And each day, the feeling of being watched intensified. On the fifth day, while digging for the tuber-like growths that his analyzer had deemed safe to eat, Ryan spotted movement in the tree line, his first clear sign of intelligent life. The figures were humanoid, but clearly alien, with skin in varying shades of blue. They approached cautiously, carrying tools that could double as weapons. Ryan's training kicked in. He stood slowly, hands visible, no sudden movements. "I come in peace," he said, knowing they wouldn't understand, but hoping his tone would convey his intentions. To his surprise, one stepped forward and spoke. "You will come with us." The translation wasn't perfect. There was a metallic echo to the words, but it was understandable. "You speak English?" Ryan couldn't hide his shock. "We speak many languages," the alien replied. Its face was mostly humanoid, but with subtle differences. Eyes set wider apart, no visible ears, a mouth that seemed too perfectly symmetrical. "The Queen wishes to see you." "Queen?" Ryan repeated. "Our sovereign, she who rules the Viridian Confederation." Ryan weighed his options. Refusing might be seen as hostile. Besides, a technologically advanced civilization might have the means to help him contact the Pathfinder. "Lead the way," he said, collecting his datapad. "But I need to retrieve some items from my shuttle first." The alien conferred briefly with its companions, then nodded. "You may collect personal belongings. No weapons." Ryan wondered how they knew about his service pistol, but decided not to ask. The alien who had spoken identified himself as Kelran, a member of the Queen's diplomatic corps. "Your arrival was detected the moment your vessel entered our atmosphere," Kelran explained as they walked back toward the crash site. "It is unusual for us to receive visitors who do not announce themselves." "It wasn't planned," Ryan said. "My shuttle malfunctioned." Kelran's expression was difficult to read, but something in his posture suggested skepticism. "Indeed." At the shuttle, Ryan was permitted to collect his datapad, some personal items, and a change of clothes. His service pistol was confiscated, though he was allowed to keep his utility knife after inspection. The journey to the Queen's palace would take 3 days, Kelran informed him. They would travel on foot to a nearby settlement, then by vehicle. "Your world," Ryan ventured as they hiked through the forest, "it has a name?" "We call it Verid," Kelran replied. "Third world of the star you would call HD 40307. Ryan knew that designation. The star was approximately 42 light-years from Earth, a K-type main-sequence star that astronomers had identified as having habitable zone planets. The Pathfinder's mission was to investigate such systems for potential resources and colonization. "And your people? You're called Viridians?" "That is the name your kind would find easiest to pronounce," Kelran said with what might have been amusement. As they traveled, Ryan observed his escorts. There were 6 in total, all with blue skin in various shades and hairless heads. Their equipment was advanced, devices that resembled tablets, but operated with holographic interfaces, and what appeared to be energy weapons, though none had been drawn. The forest gradually gave way to cultivated land, fields of crops unlike anything on Earth, tended by more blue-skinned aliens using hovering machinery. In the distance, Ryan could see structures that resembled massive honeycombs gleaming in the sunlight. That evening, they made camp in a clearing. The aliens shared their food, a paste that tasted surprisingly like sweet potatoes, and asked polite but probing questions about Earth, the ISS, and humanity's space exploration capabilities. Ryan answered guardedly, aware that he was essentially conducting first-contact diplomacy without training or backup. He asked questions of his own, but received only the most basic information in return. On the second day, they reached a settlement, a cluster of those honeycomb structures he'd seen from a distance. Here, they boarded a vehicle that hovered silently above the ground and accelerated with barely a sensation of movement. The landscape blurred past as they traveled. They crossed silver plains and forests, skirted the edge of an ocean with water so clear Ryan could see massive creatures swimming far below the surface, and passed through mountains where cities had been built into the very rock. Throughout the journey, Kelran wasn't hostile, but he wasn't forthcoming either. Ryan's escorts treated him with a distant politeness that felt calculated. On the morning of the third day, Ryan got his first glimpse of the palace. It rose from the center of a vast city, a structure so impossible it seemed to defy the laws of physics. Crystal spires stretched skyward, capturing and refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. Around it, the city spread in concentric circles, buildings becoming progressively shorter the further they were from the center. The heart of the Viridian Confederation, the Kelran announced with unmistakable pride. 27 solar systems united under one rule. Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. Humanity had only recently established permanent settlements on Mars and Venus. The scale of what he was witnessing was beyond anything his people had achieved. Their vehicle descended to a platform at the base of the palace. Ryan was led through corridors of impossible geometry, passing aliens of various forms, all of whom regarded him with open curiosity. Some weren't blue-skinned like his escorts. He spotted green, purple, and even translucent beings, suggesting the Confederation included multiple species. Finally, they arrived at a vast chamber with a ceiling that seemed to display the stars themselves, moving slowly as if observed from a ship at warp. "Approach," commanded a voice from the far end of the room. And there she was, the queen. Her skin was a rich emerald green that seemed to shimmer under the starlight, covered in places by an iridescent fabric that might have been her culture's equivalent of royal garments. Her hair, cascading in waves to her waist, was a vibrant pink that shouldn't have complemented her skin, but somehow did. She sat upon a crystalline throne, holding what appeared to be a silver pitchfork. Ryan approached and bowed, figuring that was a universal sign of respect. "Lieutenant Ryan Walker of the International Space Service," he introduced himself. "I'm grateful for your hospitality, Your Majesty." The Queen studied him, her eyes, solid purple with no visible pupils, unblinking. "I am Queen Ithara of the Viridian Confederation," she replied, her voice melodious despite the metallic translation overtone. "And you, Lieutenant Walker, are the first human to set foot on this planet." "I crashed," Ryan explained. "My shuttle was damaged. I'm trying to contact my ship, the ISS Pathfinder." "Yes, your crash." Ithara stood, her height impressive, at least 7 feet tall. "A most convenient malfunction, wouldn't you say?" Ryan frowned. "I don't understand." "Of course you don't." She approached, the pitchfork held casually at her side. "Not yet." Ryan was given quarters that, while clearly designed for a different physiology, were comfortable enough. The room was circular with a domed ceiling that displayed an accurate replica of Earth's night sky, a detail that was both comforting and unsettling. How did they know the exact arrangement of Earth's constellations? A blue-skinned attendant who introduced herself as Leary explained that he was free to use the adjoining hygiene facilities, a bathroom, though unlike any he'd seen, and that clothing suitable for his form had been synthesized. Sure enough, in a recessed area of the wall, he found garments that resembled his ISS uniform in cut, but were made of a material that felt like silk, yet had the durability of Kevlar. "The Queen will summon you when she is ready," Leary informed him before departing. "Until then, you may rest." Rest was impossible. Ryan explored his quarters, looking for surveillance devices, but finding nothing recognizable as such. Still, he assumed he was being monitored. The bathroom, featured a pool that seemed to be filled with something thicker than water, but thinner than gel. Following pictographic instructions on the wall, Ryan discovered it cleaned more effectively than any shower he'd experienced. Hours passed before a chime sounded, and Leary returned. "Her Majesty will see you now." This time Ryan was led to a smaller chamber, still grandiose by human standards, but intimate compared to the throne room. The Queen sat at a table laden with what appeared to be food and drink. She gestured for him to sit opposite her. "I trust your accommodations are acceptable?" she asked. "Very comfortable, thank you," Ryan replied. "Though I'm curious why you've gone to such trouble for an unexpected visitor." Ithara's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Is hospitality not a virtue among humans?" "It is, but most hosts don't have Earth's night sky on their guest room ceilings." The Queen selected something from the table, a fruit that seemed to pulse with inner light, and bit into it delicately. "We find that visitors are more comfortable with familiar elements. Does it displease you?" "It raises questions," Ryan said carefully, "as does your presence here." She set down the fruit. "Your species has not yet developed faster than light travel, yet here you are, 42 light-years from your homeworld. Impressive progress since your first lunar landing less than a century ago." The casual reference to human history confirmed what Ryan was beginning to suspect. They knew far more about humanity than any aliens should. "The Pathfinder uses a quantum displacement drive," Ryan explained, deciding that basic technological information wasn't classified. "It allows us to create temporary wormholes for interstellar travel." "Fascinating. Developed from the Alcubierre theoretical model, I assume?" Ryan nodded, surprised. "A modified version." "And your mission here?" "Resource survey. Earth's growing colonies require materials that are becoming scarce in our solar system." Ithara's expression hardened slightly. "Resources? Of course. Peaceful survey," Ryan clarified. "The ISS isn't a military organization. Yet you carry weapons. For protection. Space is dangerous." "Indeed it is." The Queen gestured to the food. "Please eat. Our analysis confirms these selections are compatible with human physiology." Ryan hesitated but realized refusing might be seen as an insult. He selected what appeared to be bread and took a small bite. It tasted like sourdough with hints of cinnamon. "Tell me, Lieutenant Walker, what would happen if I were to appear over your Earth tomorrow in a vessel the size of one of your cities?" The question caught him off guard. "There would be panic," he admitted. "Fear. Possibly hostile reactions from some nations. Yet you humans venture into space, to other worlds, without considering that you might cause the same reaction." "We're explorers," Ryan said. "We seek knowledge, resources." "Power," Ithara interrupted. "Like all young species." Ryan found himself growing frustrated. "With respect, Your Majesty, I crash-landed here by accident. I'm not representing Earth in an official capacity." "A fortunate accident, then." Ithara set down the pitchfork which had been resting against her chair. "It gives us an opportunity to learn about each other before more formal contact becomes necessary." The implication was clear. Contact between humanity and the Viridian Confederation was inevitable. Ryan felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Every word, every action might influence how these powerful aliens viewed his species. "I'm honored to serve as an impromptu ambassador," he said. "But my immediate concern is contacting my ship. Captain Hernandez will be searching for me." "Your ship departed the system 14 hours after your crash," Ithara said casually. Ryan felt as if he'd been punched in the gut. "That's impossible. They wouldn't abandon a search that quickly." "They received a transmission indicating you had perished in the crash. Most unfortunate misinformation." "You sent a false transmission?" Ryan stood abruptly, anger overwhelming diplomacy. Guards immediately stepped forward, but Ithara waved them back. "Your emotional response is understandable," she said calmly, "but necessary. We require time to properly assess you." "Assess me? For what purpose?" "All in due time, Lieutenant." Ithara stood, signaling the end of the audience. "For now, consider yourself my honored guest. You will have freedom to explore certain areas of the palace. Leary will serve as your guide. We will speak again tomorrow." As Ryan was escorted back to his quarters, his mind raced. The Pathfinder had left, believing him dead. No rescue would be coming. He was alone on an alien world at the mercy of beings whose motives remained unclear. And yet they hadn't harmed him. In fact, They seemed genuinely interested in understanding humans. The question was, why? Days passed, and Ryan found himself in a peculiar captivity. True to the Queen's word, he was given access to certain areas of the palace, gardens filled with plants that seemed to respond to his presence, libraries with texts he couldn't read, but interfaces that translated for him, observation decks that offered breathtaking views of the capital city. Leary accompanied him everywhere, answering his questions when she could, but deflecting those that probed too deeply into Viridian technology or politics. Queen Ithara summoned him daily for what she called cultural exchange, hours of questions about Earth, human society, and particularly about human emotions. She seemed especially interested in concepts like empathy, love, and moral decision-making. "You speak of love," she said during one such session, as they walked through a garden where flowers changed color in response to spoken words. "Define it." Ryan laughed nervously. "That's asking a lot, Your Majesty. Poets and philosophers on my world have tried for thousands of years." "Try," she insisted, tapping her pitchfork against the ground. The flowers nearest to them shifted to a deep blue. "It's caring for someone more than yourself, being willing to sacrifice for them, finding joy in their happiness." "Yet humans also wage war. We're complicated," Ryan admitted. "We're capable of great compassion and terrible cruelty, sometimes within the same individual." "A paradox that many species share," Ithara observed. "Tomorrow you will face the first trial." Before Ryan could ask what she meant, guards escorted him back to his quarters. That night, sleep eluded him. Trial? The word suggested testing, evaluation. But for what purpose? He considered the possibility that this was some form of alien research, studying human responses in controlled conditions. Or perhaps something more sinister. The next morning, Leary arrived earlier than usual. She brought a new set of clothes, more utilitarian than his previous outfits, similar to athletic wear on Earth. "These will be more suitable for today's activities," she explained. Ryan changed and followed her through unfamiliar corridors, descending deep into the palace. They emerged into a circular arena with high walls and a sand-like floor. Viewing platforms ringed the upper level, and on one stood Queen Ithara, her green skin vivid against the white of her attire. In the center of the arena stood a creature resembling a tiger crossed with a scorpion, restrained by shimmering energy fields. It was massive, easily 4 meters long, with 6 legs ending in claws and a tail arching over its back, tipped with a wicked-looking stinger. "This is a Korval," Ithara's voice echoed through the arena. "A predator native to the 4th planet in our system. It is hungry and afraid." "What am I supposed to do?" Ryan asked, eyeing the creature nervously. "Whatever you deem appropriate." She gestured with her pitchfork, and the energy fields disappeared. The Korval snarled, its tail arching higher, the stinger glistening with what Ryan assumed was venom. He instinctively reached for a weapon that wasn't there, backing toward the arena wall. The creature charged. Ryan dodged, barely avoiding a swipe from massive claws that left gouges in the wall behind him. He searched for a weapon, finding only a small water dispenser at the arena's edge. As the Korval circled, Ryan noticed something, a pattern to its movements, a favoring of its left side. It wasn't just hungry, it was injured. The creature lunged again. Instead of dodging, Ryan rolled past it toward the water dispenser. He grabbed it and faced the Korval, which was preparing for another attack. "Easy," Ryan said softly, uncapping the dispenser. He poured water into his hand and held it out, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. The Korval hesitated, its nostrils flaring. "You're just thirsty, aren't you? And hurt." The creature approached cautiously, then lapped the water from Ryan's hand. He gently reached toward its injured side, finding a fragment of metal embedded in its hide. With careful movements, he extracted the shard. The Korval shuddered, then pressed its head against Ryan's chest in an almost cat-like gesture before retreating to a corner of the arena. Applause erupted from above. Queen Ithara was nodding, making notes on a translucent tablet. "Compassion," she said. "Interesting." Guards entered and safely contained the Korval. Ryan was escorted back to Ithara's presence, his heart still racing from the encounter. "Was that really necessary?" he demanded. "I could have been killed." "Yet you weren't," Ithara replied calmly. "And we learned something valuable about humans, or at least about you, Lieutenant Walker." "What exactly?" "That when faced with a perceived threat, you look beyond the obvious. You You seek to understand rather than simply react. She studied him with those pupilless eyes. Not all beings would have noticed the creature's injury. Many would have searched for a way to kill it, not help it. Ryan felt manipulated and said so. Of course, Ithara agreed without apology. All trials are, by nature, manipulative. They present controlled situations to evoke specific responses. She tapped her pitchfork against the floor. Your response was hopeful. The trials continued for weeks. Some tested Ryan's intelligence, puzzles that required understanding alien logic or deciphering complex patterns. Others challenged his ethics, presenting moral dilemmas with no clear right answer. Still others seemed designed to test his courage, patience, or adaptability. After each, Ithara would make notes and dismiss him with cryptic comments that hinted at a larger purpose, but revealed nothing concrete. Between trials, Ryan explored what parts of the palace he could access. With Leary's guidance, he began to understand more about Viridian culture and the structure of the Confederation. It was a complex alliance of species united by shared principles of governance, with Verid as its administrative center. In his third week at the palace, Ryan discovered a vast library unlike any he had encountered before. Instead of books or data terminals, it housed what appeared to be holographic records of thousands of worlds, detailed observations of their development, from primitive societies to spacefaring civilizations. The archives of ascendants, Leary explained, records of all known intelligent species in our sector of the galaxy. May I? Ryan gestured toward the interface. Leary hesitated, then nodded. You may access public records only. Ryan navigated the unfamiliar system with Leary's help, searching for information about Earth. To his shock, he found an extensive database, detailed observations dating back centuries from humanity's earliest civilizations to present day. You've been watching us all this time? He asked, stunned. The Confederation monitors many developing worlds, Leary said carefully. It is our responsibility to understand the galaxy we inhabit. For what purpose? That is not for me to say. Ryan spent hours exploring the permitted sections of the archives, learning that Earth was classified as a pre-integration developing world, with notes indicating significant technological acceleration and concerning tendencies towards self-destruction. One night, unable to sleep and driven by curiosity, Ryan decided to take a risk. He had observed the patterns of the palace guards and knew there was a brief window when the corridor outside his quarters was unwatched during shift changes. Slipping out, he made his way to the library, heart pounding. The room was dark and silent, illuminated only by the soft glow of dormant interfaces. Ryan activated a terminal, searching deeper into Earth's records than he had been permitted before. He found detailed analyses of human conflicts, technological developments, cultural evolution, observations so thorough they could only have come from direct surveillance. Curious, isn't it? How much we know about a world that doesn't know we exist? Ryan spun around. Queen Ithara stood in the doorway, her pitchfork gleaming in the dim light. She didn't seem angry at finding him there, merely interested. Why have you been watching us? Ryan asked, abandoning pretense. She approached, her movements fluid and graceful. The same reason we watch many developing worlds, to determine readiness. Readiness for what? First contact. Ithara gestured, and the terminal expanded its display to show a star map, dozens of inhabited worlds linked in a vast network. The Viridian Confederation spans 27 solar systems, Lieutenant. We've guided many species through the transition from isolation to galactic community. Ryan stared at the map, mind-reeling. And my crash? Was no accident? She confirmed. Your shuttle was selected because you were aboard. Your psychological profile suggested you possessed qualities we seek. You've been testing me, testing humanity through you. She touched the pitchfork to the floor, and it projected a holographic display of his trials. This isn't a weapon, Lieutenant. It's a sophisticated analysis tool, one of our most advanced technologies, disguised to appear primitive to less advanced visitors. Ryan felt anger rising. You had no right to abduct me, to put me through these trials without my consent. Perhaps not by human ethics, Ithara conceded, but the stakes are high. Integration with the galactic community fundamentally transforms a species. Some aren't ready, the shock destroys their civilization. Others become conquerors. Her eyes met his. We needed to know which path humans would choose. And you decided to judge all of humanity based on one person? Not entirely. We've had other contacts, brief encounters, individuals who never knew they were being evaluated. You are simply the first formal assessment. Ryan thought of UFO stories, alien abduction claims, dismissed by serious scientists but persistent throughout human history. Had those been real? Previous Viridian assessments? Your people have great potential, Ithara continued. You are innovative, adaptable, and capable of remarkable combat. And Earth? Ryan asked, the implications dawning on him. What happens to Earth if I refuse? Ithara's expression remained neutral. Integration would be delayed but not abandoned. Another candidate would be identified in time. The process would continue, perhaps years or decades later. Ryan considered this. His decision wouldn't change the ultimate outcome for humanity, only its timing and perhaps its nature. I need time to think, he said finally. Of course, Ithara agreed. This is not a choice to be made hastily. In the days that followed, Ryan spent hours in the palace archives, studying the histories of other worlds that had joined the Confederation. Some transitions had been seamless, others had faced challenges, political upheaval, religious crises, economic disruption. But in every case, the species had ultimately benefited. Lifespans extended, poverty eliminated, environmental damage reversed. He also explored the capital city, accompanied by Leary, but otherwise unrestrained. The markets, academies, and public spaces of Verid offered glimpses of daily life in an advanced civilization. Citizens of various species coexisted peacefully. Children, or what Ryan assumed were children, played in parks beneath artificial weather systems that created perfect conditions. It was utopian. Almost too perfect. Are there no problems in the Confederation? He asked Leary as they watched a group of young blue-skinned Viridians practice some form of dance-like martial art. No crime? No conflict? Of course there are, Leary replied. We have not transcended our natures entirely, but many of the causes of conflict in younger civilizations, resource scarcity, territorial disputes, ideological differences, have been resolved through technology and cultural evolution. And the remaining problems are addressed through education, rehabilitation, and, when necessary, containment. Leary gestured toward the horizon. There is a facility beyond the eastern mountains where those who cannot adapt to Confederation society live in a controlled environment. A prison? We would call it a healing center. But yes, in essence, though far more humane than what you might imagine. Ryan appreciated the honesty. A perfect society would have been harder to believe than one that still struggled with its own imperfections. On the 7th day after Ithara's revelation, Ryan was summoned to the observatory where they had spoken that night. The Queen awaited him, pitchfork in hand. Have you reached a decision, Lieutenant Walker? Ryan took a deep breath. Before I answer, I need to know something. These trials, what exactly were you measuring? Ithara gestured with her pitchfork, and a holographic display appeared, showing recordings of each trial. We needed to understand human capacity for adaptation, cooperation, and empathy, she explained. Many species excel in knowledge or technology, but lack the emotional intelligence to join a diverse galactic community. Others have the opposite problem, strong empathy but technological stagnation. The display shifted to show his responses in each scenario, with annotations in the Viridian language. Your performance was illuminating, Ithara continued. You showed remarkable adaptability, solving problems with approaches we hadn't anticipated. Your ethical reasoning, while sometimes different from Confederation standards, demonstrated consistent internal principles. Most importantly, you showed empathy, not just for being similar to yourself, but for those entirely alien. And your conclusion? Humans are promising. Flawed, certainly, but with potential. Your species values individualism more highly than most Confederation members, which presents challenges but also opportunities for innovation. Ryan nodded. Then I'll stay, not just as Earth's representative, but as a student. There's clearly much I can learn from your people. Ithara's expression softened, the first real emotion he'd seen from her beyond academic interest or diplomatic courtesy. A wise choice, but partial. The full choice is this: stay as liaison or stay as my partner. Ryan stared. Partner? In our culture, leadership is always shared between two beings who balance each other. My previous partner passed into the beyond 3 cycles ago. Since then, I've been seeking a replacement. She set down her pitchfork and approached him. These trials weren't just to test humanity's readiness for contact, but to test your compatibility with me. You're proposing marriage? Ryan struggled to process this unexpected turn. A political union initially, though in my culture, such arrangements often evolve into deeper connections. For the first time, she looked uncertain. I've observed your kind values choice in such matters. This is your choice to make. Ryan's mind raced. Wouldn't your people object? I'm an alien with no understanding of your politics, your history. Some would, Ithara acknowledged. Others would see the symbolic value of a human partner as we prepare for Earth's integration. The final decision rests with the Council of Elders, but they are aware of my intentions. This is unexpected. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. I need time to consider. Time you shall have, Ithara said. 3 days, by your reckoning. Then I must present my choice to the Council. Ryan retreated to his quarters, mind spinning. The offer to serve as liaison between Earth and the Confederation had been unexpected enough. This new proposition was staggering. He called for Leary, who arrived promptly. I need to understand something, he said without preamble. This partnership the Queen has proposed, what exactly does it entail? Leary seemed unsurprised by the question. The royal partnership is a tradition dating back to pre-unification Verid. Our society believes that wisdom comes from balance, the tension between different perspectives, different ways of seeing. Like checks and balances in government? Similar but more intimate. Partners share not just governance but life. They are bound by ceremony to support each other, challenge each other, and ultimately to serve the Confederation together. Leary hesitated. It is unusual for a non-Viridian to be considered for such a position, but not unprecedented. Ryan paced the room. Has the Queen proposed this to others before me? That is not for me to know, Leary replied diplomatically. But I can tell you that partnering is not a decision any Viridian makes lightly, least of all the Queen. That evening, Ryan was invited to a small gathering, what he might have called a dinner party on Earth. Ithara was present, along with several high-ranking Confederation officials and their partners. No mention was made of the Queen's proposal, but Ryan understood he was being introduced to potential future colleagues. The conversation flowed more naturally than he expected. These were people, beings, with hopes, fears, and interests not so different from humans, despite their alien appearance. They asked about Earth, not with clinical detachment, but with genuine curiosity. As the gathering wound down, Ithara approached him. Walk with me, she invited. They strolled through the palace gardens, now familiar to Ryan. Night-blooming flowers released fragrances that reminded him of jasmine and vanilla. You have questions, Ithara observed. Many, Ryan admitted. Most pressingly, why me? There must be thousands of Viridians more qualified, more knowledgeable about your culture and politics. Qualification takes many forms, she replied. Knowledge can be acquired. Character is more fundamental. She paused beside a reflecting pool where aquatic plants glowed with bioluminescence. I have led alone for 3 cycles. In that time, many have sought the partnership, most with ambition rather than vision. And you think I have vision? I think you have perspective. Ithara turned to face him directly. You see with fresh eyes what we have taken for granted. You question what we accept as given. This is valuable. Necessary, even. Ryan considered this. What about personal compatibility? On Earth, partnerships, marriages are usually built on mutual attraction, shared values. Is that not what we have discovered through your trials? That despite our differences, we share core values, compassion, curiosity, courage? Her lips curved in a smile. As for attraction, I find your form alien but not unpleasing. Your mind, however, is what interests me most. Ryan couldn't help but laugh. That's actually not so different from human relationships, at their best. They continued walking, discussing the practicalities of what such a partnership would mean. Ryan would need specialized training in Confederation law, history, and protocols. There would be opposition from conservatives within the Viridian government. And eventually, there would be the monumental task of preparing humanity for first contact. If I accept, Ryan said as they completed their circuit of the garden, I want one condition. Name it. I want to return to Earth first, as myself, with my memories intact, to say goodbye to my family, to prepare them, at least, for what's coming. Ithara considered this. It would be unprecedented. The standard protocol for integration begins with diplomatic representatives, not civilian contacts. My family can be discreet, Ryan insisted. And they deserve to know the truth about what happened to me. I don't want them thinking I'm dead, or worse, living with some fabricated memory of my return. The council will object, Ithara warned. Then convince them, Ryan challenged. If I'm to be your partner, they'll need to get used to human perspectives. Ithara studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I will advocate for this exception. No promises, but I believe it can be arranged. The second day dawned with a summons not from Ithara but from the Council of Elders. Ryan, dressed in the formal attire that had been provided, still reminiscent of his ISS uniform but with Viridian styling, and followed his escort to a chamber he hadn't visited before. 12 beings seated in a semicircle awaited him. Most were Viridian, but 3 were clearly of different species. One with translucent skin that revealed internal organs, another with 4 arms and iridescent scales, and a third that appeared to be composed entirely of crystalline structures. Lieutenant Ryan Walker addressed the central figure, an elderly Viridian with deep blue skin. We understand Queen Ithara has offered you the position of royal partner. She has, Ryan confirmed. This is not a decision we take lightly. The elder continued. No outsider has held such a position in 7 generations. We must be certain of your commitment to the Confederation's principles. What followed was an intense questioning that made Ithara's earlier trials seem gentle by comparison. They probed his understanding of Confederation history, ethical dilemmas involving interspecies relations, hypothetical scenarios that might arise during Earth's integration. Ryan answered honestly, admitting when he didn't know something, but demonstrating the values he knew were important. Respect for diversity, commitment to peaceful coexistence, willingness to learn. After 3 exhausting hours, the council dismissed him. As he left, the crystalline elder spoke, its voice resonating like chimes. You remind me of my own world's first contact representative, overwhelmed but adaptable. This is promising. That afternoon, Ryan sought out the palace archives again, this time with a specific purpose, to learn more about the role of royal partner. The historical records showed that while the position was traditionally held by Viridians, there had indeed been exceptions, including, as the crystalline elder had hinted, during first contact scenarios with new member worlds. Most interestingly, he discovered that the partner's role was not merely ceremonial. They had specific authorities, including veto power over integration timelines and methods. If he accepted this position, he would have genuine influence over how Earth was introduced to the galactic community. The evening found him in his quarters, recording thoughts on his datapad when Ithara arrived unannounced. The Council has approved your condition, she said without preamble. If you accept the partnership, you may return to Earth briefly to speak with your family before formal duties begin. Ryan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, Ithara cautioned. The visit will be strictly controlled. You will be accompanied by Confederation representatives. Your family will be required to sign non-disclosure agreements backed by memory alteration technology if breached. I understand, Ryan said. It's better than the alternative. Ithara moved to the window, looking out at the night sky where Earth's sun was a barely visible point of light. Tomorrow you must give your answer. Have you decided? Almost, Ryan replied. But I need to understand something first. This partnership, is it purely political, or do you expect it to become personal as well? Ithara turned to face him, her expression softer than he'd ever seen it. In our culture, there is no firm distinction. The political is personal, the personal is political. She approached him slowly. I would not have chosen you if I did not see potential for both dimensions to develop. Even though I'm alien to you, even though we're so different, perhaps because of those differences. Ithara reached out, her long fingers hovering near his face but not quite touching. May I? Ryan nodded, and she gently traced the contours of his features, an intimate gesture that felt both scientific and tender. Your kind fears difference, she observed. We celebrate it. The universe tends toward entropy, toward sameness. Difference, diversity, is precious. The touch of her hand should have felt alien, but somehow didn't. There was a connection forming between them. different from any relationship Ryan had known, but recognizable nonetheless. "I'll give you my answer tomorrow," he said, "but I think we both know what it will be." On the morning of the third day, Ryan stood before the Council of Elders with Queen Ithara at his side. The chamber was filled with dignitaries, representatives from across the Confederation who had traveled to witness this unprecedented event. "Lieutenant Ryan Walker of Earth," intoned the chief elder, "you have been offered the position of royal partner to Queen Ithara of the Viridian Confederation. Before this assembly, give us your answer." Ryan looked at Ithara, then back to the council. "I accept the partnership, with all its responsibilities and privileges, as outlined in your laws and traditions." A murmur ran through the assembly. Surprise, approval, and some notes of concern. "Be aware," the elder continued, "that this position is lifelong, binding you to the Confederation's service above all other loyalties. While you may represent Earth's interests, your primary duty will be to the greater galactic community." "I understand," Ryan said firmly. "Then kneel and receive the mark of office." Ryan knelt before the council as Ithara stepped forward, her pitchfork, now revealed to him as the royal scepter, a sophisticated technology disguised as primitive, in hand. She touched it to his shoulders and then to his forehead. A brief, warm sensation spread through him. "Rise, partner Ryan Walker of Earth, second sovereign of the Viridian Confederation." As he stood, applause broke out, hesitant at first, then building to a crescendo. Ithara took his hand, raising it with hers in a universal gesture of unity. The ceremony was followed by a celebration unlike anything Ryan had experienced. Music that seemed to exist both as sound and light, foods that changed flavor with each bite, performances that defied human concepts of dance or theater. Through it all, Ithar remained at his side, explaining traditions, introducing key figures, guiding him through his first official function as royal partner. "When do we leave for Earth?" he asked during a quiet moment. 3 days hence," Ithara replied. "A small delegation, you, myself, and 4 security personnel. We will travel in a vessel designed to avoid detection by your world's surveillance systems." Ryan nodded, the reality of what he had committed to settling in. "And after that?" "After that, the real work begins." Ithara's eyes met his. "Preparing humanity for the knowledge that they are not alone, that their place in the universe is both smaller and larger than they ever imagined." The journey to Earth took mere hours in the Confederation vessel, a sleek craft that utilized what Ithara called fold space technology, making the 42 light-year distance negligible. They emerged from fold space in Earth's orbit, on the dark side of the moon to avoid detection. From this vantage point, Ryan gazed upon his homeworld with new eyes, no longer just his home, but one of countless inhabited planets in a vast, interconnected galaxy. "It's beautiful," Ithara observed, standing beside him at the viewport. "The blue particularly. Many worlds have water, but few in such abundance." "It's easy to forget how rare it is," Ryan agreed. "Humans haven't always been the best stewards of that gift." "All young species make similar mistakes," Ithara said gently. "Part of integration will be helping repair environmental damage before it becomes irreversible." Their descent to Earth was carefully calculated to avoid radar detection, a technological feat Ryan couldn't begin to understand. They landed in a remote area of the Colorado Rockies, near the cabin where Ryan's parents had retired. As they prepared to disembark, Ithara presented Ryan with a small device. "This will temporarily mask my appearance to human eyes. Your family will see me as human. It seems prudent for this first meeting." Ryan considered, then shook his head. "No. If they're going to accept the truth about where I've been and what I'm doing, they need to see you as you are." Ithara seemed pleased by this decision. "As you wish." The walk to the cabin was surreal. Treading Earth soil again after months on an alien world, breathing the familiar mountain air, hearing the sound of a hawk circling overhead. For Ithara and their security detail, it was their first experience of Earth's environment, and they paused frequently to examine plants or test the quality of light through Earth's atmosphere. Ryan's mother opened the door before they could knock. A sixth sense mothers seem to across the galaxy, he reflected. "Ryan?" she gasped, her face a picture of shock and joy. "Oh my God, Ryan!" She embraced him fiercely before noticing his companions. To her credit, she managed not to scream at the sight of aliens on her doorstep, though her knuckles went white as she gripped the doorframe. "Mom," Ryan said gently, "I have quite a story to tell you, and Dad, may we come in?" The next few hours were among the most surreal of Ryan's life, and considering his recent experiences, that was saying something. He explained his crash, his time on Verid, the existence of the Confederation, and finally his new position and partnership with Ithara. His parents, both retired aerospace engineers, processed the information with remarkable composure, asking intelligent questions about Confederation technology and governance. Ryan suspected their scientific backgrounds made them more prepared than most would be for such revelations. "So you're married to an alien queen?" his father finally asked, eyebrows raised. "It's more complex than that," Ryan explained. "The partnership is political as well as personal. Think of it as a diplomatic position with additional dimensions." "And you're happy?" his mother asked, always cutting to the heart of the matter. Ryan glanced at Ithara, who had been observing the family dynamics with keen interest. "I am. It's not what I expected for my life, but it feels right. Important." "When can we tell people our son is helping introduce humanity to aliens?" his father asked with a hint of pride. "Not yet," Ithara interjected gently. "Integration must proceed carefully through proper diplomatic channels. Your world's governments must be prepared first, then the public." "But you will be part of that process," Ryan assured them. "When the time comes, you'll be among the first civilian representatives." Before departing, Ryan gave his parents specialized communication devices, disguised as ordinary tablets, but capable of secure instantaneous connection across light years. They would be able to contact him, to know he was safe. As they walked back to the concealed vessel, Ithara took Ryan's hand. "Your parents are remarkable individuals. Their adaptation to our existence was unexpectedly smooth." Ryan smiled. "They raised me on science fiction. I think part of them always hoped the universe was bigger and more interesting than we knew." "A quality you inherited," Ithara observed. "It serves you well in your new role." 6 months later, Ryan stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city of Verid, now familiar with its rhythms and beauty. He had grown accustomed to the twin moons, the purple foliage, the architecture that seemed to defy physics. He'd learned enough of the language to conduct basic conversations without translation assistance. Behind him, he heard the soft sound of Ithara's approach. After months together, he could recognize her footsteps, distinguish her presence from others. "The Council approved our proposal," she said. "First, contact with Earth will begin next spring." Ryan turned to face her. What had once seemed alien, her green skin, pink hair, pupilless eyes, now held a beauty he couldn't imagine living without. "Are they ready for the news that one of their own is co-ruler of an alien confederation?" Ithara laughed, a sound he'd grown to love. "Perhaps not, but they weren't ready for first contact either. Some things require a leap of faith." The past months had been intensive, Ryan undergoing rigorous training in Confederation law, history, and protocols, while simultaneously helping develop the integration plan for Earth. It would begin with discreet contact with key world leaders, followed by a carefully orchestrated public revelation. His partnership with Ithara had evolved as well. What began as mutual respect had deepened into something more profound. They were different in countless ways: physiology, psychology, cultural background. Yet those differences had become complementary rather than divisive. Ryan took her hand, still marveling at how perfectly their fingers intertwined despite their different number of digits. "When I crashed here, I thought I'd lost everything: my ship, my career, my future." He smiled. "I never imagined I'd find something greater." "The best discoveries are often unplanned," Ithara said, leaning down to touch her forehead to his, their culture's equivalent of a kiss, which he had come to treasure more than the human version. Overhead, the twin moons rose, casting their silver light over the crystal spires of the palace. Somewhere in orbit, preparations were underway for humanity's introduction to the wider universe, a process that would change Earth forever, hopefully for the better. But for now, on this balcony, the universe had narrowed to just the two of them, proof that understanding, respect, and yes, love could bridge even the vast distances between stars. The pitchfork, the royal scepter of Verid, stood propped against the railing, its analysis complete. The results were clear. Through one human and one queen, two worlds would be forever changed, not by conquest or coercion, but by connection, not through fear, but through love, the most powerful force in any galaxy.